What's going on, everybody? This is another edition of College Football Showdown presented by Prime Sports World. Keep it here locked. Go ahead and please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Go ahead and like our Prime Sports World Facebook page and both of our group pages, and NBA Supreme and NFL Supreme. And then also check out my main man, Christian Simpson's Daily Blitz blog. He's got some heat there. And also check out Monday Evening Quarterback Christian's podcast as well. He's not going to be able to join. Matt James not going to be able to join. But it's all good because I go solo dolo. And man, hey, look, everybody knows I like to talk. So let's go. Anyways, we got a lot to focus on here in the college football. In week 8 of college football. And it's on the horizon here, everybody. Let me tell you something. Last week was a hell of a week. Tennessee upset Alabama on a wobbler. Okay, the kick was the kick was struggling, but the kick struggled up into the uprights. That was a hell of a game. Let me tell you guys. Hendon Hooker showed that he's for real. He throws the prettiest deep ball in college football. That offense is very explosive. Another player, on the other side of Alabama emerged, Jahmyr Gibbs with 3 touchdowns, over 160 scrimmage yards. Jahmyr Gibbs is for real. I mean, he does everything. Runs, catches the ball out the backfield, can kick, can return kicks, can return punts. He's a very vital player to the Alabama team offensively. He's one of those guys. That he's a jack of all trades, and he's definitely being looked at on not only my Heisman list, but other people's Heisman lists across the nation. So watch out for Jahmyr Gibbs. USC losing to Utah last week, and I'm just gonna kind of just go over some of the upsets. I was actually 2 for 4, so I predicted Tennessee beating Bama. And I also predicted, if I'm not mistaken, I predicted TCU to beat Oklahoma State. But I'm not sure if that was actually on my list of. I had Kentucky beating Mississippi State. My man's, hey, let me tell you something. If you don't watch this show and you hear me when I say, hey, I got some long shots, I got some upsets, I usually get the upsets right. I get about 2 upsets right out of 4. I try to put 4 upsets, with the 4th one usually being a long shot. If you want to put it on the parlay late, late night game or whatever the case is. If it's like a game that's like, okay, I'm going to play with this parlay, I'm going to put this, and this could really take it to the next level, I put those upsets in here too. Last week's upset for that was, if I'm not mistaken, let me look at here, was Iowa State at Kansas. Iowa State at Texas. Number 32, Texas. Which Iowa State played Texas pretty well. They were able to, they only lost by 3. And Iowa State's got a whole bunch of close losses this year. Really great defense. Hunter Deckers is a really good quarterback. He's top 25 in passing yards. Makes a lot of mistakes in my opinion, but he could sling it. But Iowa State's a team that can play defense. They stuck in there with Texas, in Texas, but they ended up losing, not getting the result they wanted. Game last week that I thought might come in. I also picked Oklahoma beating Kansas. Actually, I was 3 for 4. The only team that I didn't win was Iowa State and Texas. So I was actually 3 for 4 on my upsets last week. And that's because Dylan Gabriel came back. Totally different team with Dylan Gabriel there. He threw for 403 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oklahoma was doing whatever the hell they wanted with Kansas. A Kansas team that wasn't so bad defensively coming into this football game. Now, albeit they didn't have Jalen Daniels, in the game, which kind of hindered their offense just a tad. But it's not like Bean wasn't playing well, and that's their backup quarterback, Jason Bean. He played pretty well. He had what did he have? He had 265 yards, 4 touchdowns, 200. He just isn't like the threat that Jerry Daniels is, on the ground and through the air. But they still put up 42 points against Oklahoma. That's the thing about Oklahoma is that the defense is just not up there yet. It's not where Brent Venables wants it, and I got to give credit to where credit's due. They came back, they bounced back, they needed to win after just getting embarrassed by Texas. They're a whole different ball club. They're a whole bit different team with Dylan Gabriel out there, and I just got to give props to Oklahoma for winning. Eric Gray, I mean, he had a hell of a game. He's one of the best running backs in the league, in the nation. Had 176 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Marvin Mims, one of the best wide receivers in the nation, had 9 receptions, 106 yards. He was just making plays all over. They could not stop him either. But yeah, other than that, I thought that Oklahoma controlled that game. They were up 3 scores at one point. I mean, and Kansas made a valiant effort coming back, but Oklahoma controlled that game. They're a whole different team with Dylan Gabriel, as we saw. Even when they in the loss against Kansas State, it was for tat in a way there. Just the defense just isn't up to par. Another team, Utah, beating USC 43-42. That was actually probably that and TCU and Oklahoma State. Actually, probably the best games of the week. There were some great games last week in Week 7. This one's another good one that we got to mention here. Utah and USC. It's tough to play in Salt Lake City, but it looked like Caleb Williams played his butt off. 381 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Cameron Rising 415 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Travis Dye played well. Cameron Rising was actually the leading rusher for Utah. This game was in the receiving yards. I mean, Dalton Kincaid had himself a field day with 234 yards and a touchdown, 16 receptions for Utah. And that was and they knew with 48 seconds left they had to go for 2. They knew it, because if they tie the game up, there's a potential that USC drives the ball down the field and can kick a field goal to win. They still could have won. But if they knew that if they could stop USC, they'd win. So going for 2 right there in that moment, that was big. It could have backfired on them if they didn't go for 2. All USC had to do was run the clock out. But in the same boat, shout out to Utah for bouncing back after losing to UCLA. They beat a top 10 team in the nation and USC. And then this is a team that jumps in the rankings, right? Obviously, they jump in the rankings. They don't jump ahead of USC, but they jump in the rankings. And this is a team that was highly considered to be a potential player to win the Pac-12 and to even maybe push to even get into the CFP, possibly, for that 4th slot, because that 4th slot is kind of, a bunch of teams. You got Clemson, you got Michigan, you got God League, you got Ole Miss, you got right now, Tennessee was there, but beat Bama. Now you got Bama, kind of vying for that 4th seed now. So that 4th seed's kind of up in the air, and Utah was there at the beginning of the season, but a couple losses kind of takes them out of contention there. I think USC is a team. I didn't think that they were going to lose this early in the year. I thought that they played their butt off too. I mean, I got to give it to them. But I thought that they'll be able to kind of go undefeated this year. I really truly thought that USC can go undefeated. I thought Utah was a tough game for USC. I definitely thought a few weeks back, or playing at Oregon State was a tough game for USC. They still have, I mean, and now the game against UCLA is even bigger. So if UCLA remains undefeated, that game is going to be huge. The second to last game in the Rose Bowl. So the rest of the schedule, they got Arizona, California, Colorado. They have a bye week this week, but all three of those games, they should be able to win those easily going into the game against UCLA. And yeah, USC has to show up some things. They give up a lot of yards through the air. The secondary needed to play better. They weren't getting as much pressure, that they wanted. Uh, so I gotta give it to Utah. For playing valiant, for coming back after losing to UCLA, and winning, beating a really good team, in USC. Um, and also, the loss earlier to Florida hurt, which we'll get to Florida, another time. But yeah, this is a team. This is a team that definitely can, is playing for a New Year's Six right now. Utah is. So they have a couple big games coming up. But yeah, USC definitely has to play a little bit better. They were led defensively by Eric Gentry, who's one of their leaders on defense this year. And he's the guy. Me and Christian talked about him. I mean, he's got limbs for days. He's 6'6" middle linebacker. Dude is just absolutely massive. He's like he looks like a freaking shooting guard or a small forward out there trying to play middle linebacker. I've never seen it. I mean, he's definitely a guy that at the next level, can probably. I mean, he could probably switch over to safety. That's how much range this guy has. That's how long his arms are. I can definitely see that. I mean, he's definitely got kind of a slider build. But 6'6", man. But Eric Gentry, the guy, he's definitely a tackling. He's been a tackling machine for them this year. The guy that I really, was looking forward to, kind of having more of an impact on this game was Tuli Pelotu, the defensive tackle. I thought he was going to have more of an impact in this game. He's basically, he's I've been raving about him all year. He's got 7 sacks this season. He's tied for first in the nation, and that's coming from like the interior line position. He's a guy that is going to be a force at the next level. And he's another, follow along with those Samoan descent, guys that go to USC. He's a guy that falls in line with that in that mold. And at the next level, he's a guy that's going to wreak havoc from the interior line positions. Athletic, he's big, got size, he's fast, stays low, can pressure the quarterback through the middle. This game, he just did not have that much of an impact, and I thought he would have a bigger impact. But yeah, shout out to Utah. I think USC bounces back. They get back in the top. They'll get back in the top 8. I don't know if they get back into the college football playoff. That depends on how well Michigan plays. Clemson, I think Clemson has a good chance at going undefeated here for the rest of the season. I think Michigan, it comes down to Ohio State, and then also it comes down to Tennessee. If they end up losing, Bama kind of hops back in there, right? So it's all up in the air when it comes to the number 3 and number 4, in my opinion. Definitely Ohio State Ohio State should be ranked number 2, and I've always said, I mean, Ohio State should be ranked number 2 because they have taken care of business every week. It's not like they look bad. I mean, they had a little struggle with Notre Dame, but they took care of business. And every single game after that, they taken care of business. And so Ohio State deserves to be number 2. They're not like Bama where they struggled against Texas. They're not like Georgia where, and even though Georgia's number 1, they're not like Georgia where they struggle with Missouri. Okay, or I think Georgia ended up struggling with Auburn as well for a little bit before they took off 42-10. But yeah, they definitely struggled with Missouri. They gave up 22 points to Kent State. I mean, I'm over here picking on the number one team in the nation. But then when I do look at Alabama as well, they struggle with Texas. Um, they lost to Tennessee. They struggle with Texas A&M. So this is a team that Alabama, has some blemishes, especially in the secondary. Ohio State's taking care of business. Even though we can all say and pick and prod at Ohio State, and I'm just picking up and looking at their schedule. We can all pick and prod at Ohio State. They haven't played anybody, but 45-12 beat Arkansas State. 77-21 beat Toledo. 52-21 beat Wisconsin. 49-10 beat Rutgers. 49-20 beat Michigan State. That's called taking care of business, ladies and gentlemen. That's called That's called keeping the pedal on the gas. Beat Notre Dame in the first week of the season, 21-10. It was a close game. Getting the Kings off, first game of the season. Notre Dame was ranked top 5. Notre Dame has a pretty solid defense. But after that, they're taking care of business, ladies and gentlemen. Now they're starting to hit a little rougher, the tougher schedule. Iowa doesn't have an offense at all, but their defense is solid. One of the better defenses in the nation. Ohio State's going to have a little bit of trouble trying to, I don't think that Iowa's going to completely shut them down, but I think they'll slow them down a little bit. But I think Ohio State with just those 3 wide receivers, the running game, C.J. Stroud, I think they're just too explosive for Iowa to contain for 4 quarters. After that, you got to go to Happy Valley, Penn State. Then you kind of get into your easier part of the schedule, Northwestern, Indiana. At Maryland, that's a trap game before you got to play Michigan. Everybody knows this. Maryland's a tough team. And you got the big game. Back at the Horseshoe, playing Michigan. I think Michigan will be ranked number 4. I don't see anything that's going to get me from saying, hey, Michigan is not going to be undefeated going into the game. I mean, they beat Penn State 41-17. They got Michigan State next week. Then they go to Rutgers, Nebraska. Tough game for Michigan. The second to last game at the Big House against U of I. Number 18th ranked U of I just keeps climbing up in the rankings. And I can talk about U of I too. Let me get to that. 6-1 on the season. U of I, led by Chase Brown, he's probably going to be a Doak Walker finalist. Chase Brown is amazing. He's been amazing this year. Their team beat Iowa 9-6, beat Minnesota 26-14 just last week. Went into Camp Randall and beat Wisconsin 34-10. Everybody knows that's not a easy place to win, even though Wisconsin's on a down year. Lost to Indiana 23-20, but I mean, second game of the season, still kind of, if they would play that game again, they beat Indiana. Okay. But when I look at their schedule, at Nebraska, they can win that game. Versus Michigan State's on the down year, they can win that game. Purdue's going to be a tough game. But they're at home. So I think they can beat Purdue. By the time they play Michigan, and then they end the season, they play at Michigan, then they go to Northwestern, which I think they could beat Northwestern. Illinois is a team that's going to be 10-2, in my opinion. They're going to be 10-2. They're going to finish the year 10-2, in my opinion. They're going to lose to Michigan. But this is a game, they might be in the top 10 or close to the top 10. Maybe in the top 10 when they play Michigan. That might be a 10-4 matchup. Second to last game. So Michigan has the last 2 games are going to be tough for them. I'm impressed with Illinois, though, especially Chase Brown. I think he needs to love more in the Heisman rankings. It's got over 1,000 yards so far this year. I mean, anytime you got over 1,000 yards, man, I mean, you running the hell out of that football. He's one of those guys that's going to be picked definitely from rounds 3 to 5. Definitely next year is Chase Brown. And also they've been having some solid quarterback play from Tommy DeVito as well. But this is a kid, man. Chase Brown, man. He's a guy And I believe he's a transfer, if I'm not mistaken. Chase Brown transferred from Western Michigan. Long, back in 2018, he was a transfer. But yeah, Chase Brown is a guy. He's back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons so far. Last year, he had 1,000 yards with 5 touchdowns. He's gonna obliterate that. He's already had 1,000 yards midway through the season with 4 touchdowns already. So he's having a hell of a year. He's definitely gonna be. He's definitely gonna be in the Doak Walker Award, in the Doak Walker Award watch list so far. And then going back, Clemson took care of business against Florida State. I mean, they let Florida State creep back, but Clemson was able to take care of business. They were pretty much had control of that football game. They were up about, I think they were, a few scores. Golly, they were up going into the fourth quarter. They were up 34-14, so they were up almost 3 scores going into that fourth quarter. They let Florida State score a couple touchdowns to get back in the game. But Clemson's been another team that's been taking care of business. So yeah, and then let me touch back on UCLA, Oklahoma State, and TCU. That was a game where Oklahoma State just let it slip away a little bit, but TCU came back in the second half, scored 27. TCU scored 27 points between the fourth quarter and overtime. TCU's a team, they took that game away from Oklahoma State. Matt Duggan, hell of a quarterback. All I gotta say is that TCU's top 10 team, Quentin Johnson, one of the best probably the best wide receiver, most physically imposing wide receivers in college football. I'll be surprised if he's not the first wide receiver taken in next year's draft. Jordan Addison's pretty good. You got Smith and Jugba. Really, we've been talking about him for a couple years. Xavier Worthy's pretty good. He's still a true sophomore, so he's not going to be eligible to come out the draft. But Quentin Johnson's a guy 6'4", 215, can run a lot of routes. He has a great route tree, physically imposing, fast, strong, big, can catch anything. TCU is definitely a team to watch out for. And I could just go over I could just go over their schedule for the rest of the season right here. And I'll tell you right now, if TCU is going to go undefeated. Kansas State, that's going to be a tough game. You got to be able to corral Adrian Martinez. We'll talk about that later. At West Virginia, that's a tough place to play. You got to go play Texas Tech. You can win that game. At Texas, you can win that game. At Baylor, that's going to be a tough one. Versus Iowa State, they played everybody tough this year. So they got a tough stretch here to kind of remain undefeated to possibly get into the college football playoff here. So they're in the tough part of their schedule. Kansas is no slouch. Playing at West Virginia is a hard place to play, but I think they get that done. Playing at Texas, Texas is going to be ranked in that game. The crowd's going to be going crazy. At Baylor, going up against Iowa State. You have 5 really tough games here to end the season. And then Texas Tech is no slouch. They play tough as well, too. So their second half of the season for TCU is going to be tough to win, but I think they can handle it. I think they can, if they stay focused, they can win. I think Max Duggan's a guy. Quentin Johnson's a guy. Condre Miller is another weapon for them. The defense plays really well. So I think TCU is a team that can be in the top 10. Moving on to my top 25, to the AP top 25. We can just go over this really quick. At number 1, Georgia stays the same. At number 2, we got Ohio State. They've been taking care of business. Number 3, Tennessee moves into the top 4 after beating Alabama. Hendon Hooker, like I said, man, he's the second coming to Randall Cunningham. Me and Christian talk about it all the time. He throws the best deep ball in the nation, in my opinion, the prettiest deep ball in the nation. At number 4, we got Michigan coming off of that 42-10 win against Penn State. Michigan, Blake Corum have been dominating this year so far. And they'll continue to dominate until Ohio State, possibly Illinois. At number 5, we got Clemson. They moved down a slot, and I think that's only because they let Florida State a little bit off the hook in a way when they should kind of put their foot on their throat when they were kind of struggling there. That when they're up 3 scores, they probably should have extended that lead in the fourth quarter. And Michigan, beat a ranked Penn State team by 32 points. So that's the reason why you kind of fluctuate there with Clemson and Michigan. But do I think Clemson could beat Michigan? Absolutely. I think Clemson could beat Michigan today if they play. At number 6, we got Alabama moving down 3 slots, losing to Tennessee. At number 7, we have Ole Miss moving up 2 slots. I forget who Ole Miss played last week. They played Auburn, beat them 48-34. Didn't really watch that game too much, but I was paying close attention to that game. Ole Miss is a good team. Ole Miss is a team that has great quarterback play. They had the kid Jackson Dart, transfer from USC. That kid's been playing really well for Ole Miss. Quinshon Judkins is another running back, man. I mean, it's a year of the running back, man. These running backs are, he's got 10 touchdowns so far this season. He's another guy, man, that's been on fire. Jonathan Mingo is another guy, 507 yards. He's the Jackson Dart's top target. And I'm just looking at offensively. This is a definite. And then defensively, they're the 16th best team defensively with points against for them for Ole Miss. So that's a team that is definitely worthy of being in the top 10. At number 8, TCU beating Oklahoma State in Stillwater. That's a hell of a win for TCU and their program right there. Especially after Gary Patterson's been there for so long, brand new coach. They were able to get that done. At number 9, UCLA. I always said I have a love-hate relationship for UCLA. They move up in the rankings. They have a really big game this week going up against Oregon. I can't wait to watch that matchup. But Chip Kelly's a hell of a coach, man. He had one stop with the Eagles in NFL. Didn't work out, but he's a hell of a college coach. He's turned UCLA into a team that's been in the top 25 last couple seasons. And that's a basketball school. So he's turned UCLA into a program, one of the better programs in the Pac-12 on the gridiron. And they're led by BTR. Everybody knows who that is. Zach Charbonnet running the football. But yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's definitely a Heisman Trophy candidate. He's been playing lights out. He's one of the main reasons why UCLA is where they are at right now. And at number 10, Oregon. Bo Nix in Oregon has played lights out since they got smashed by Georgia in week 1. Look for Oregon and UCLA to be a hell of a game this week. At number 11, we got Oklahoma State. Number 12, USC. After that loss to Utah, they moved down. Wake Forest, number 13. They move up a slot. Wake Forest has continued to impress me this year. They are, a couple plays from being undefeated and probably in the top 8, maybe top 10. I would say top 8, top 7, maybe. They're a couple plays from, being in the top 7 if they beat Clemson in overtime. So Wake Forest is definitely an impressive team. I love Sam Hartman. I love that offense that they have at Wake Forest. I think that is a team that is one of the more underrated teams in college football this season. At number 14, Syracuse, another underrated team, and they're coming off a big win against NC State in the Carrier Dome. And just when you thought Dino Babers was on the hot seat, that seat has cooled off tremendously. Winning cures everything. Like I said, Syracuse has done a good job at winning this season. Off to the best start in recent memory. I think off to the best start in school history, in my opinion. I think so. And then number 15, Utah. After beating USC, they move up in the rankings. I think they moved up, 5 slots? Number 16, we got Penn State moving down 6 spots, 42-10, losing to Michigan. They don't completely drop out of the top 25, but they drop down significantly out of the top 10. At number 17, Kansas State, they stand pat. Number 18, we got Illinois, the final line, moving up 6 slots this week. Illinois has been very impressive, 6-1 start. I anticipate Illinois being in the top 10 at some point this season, probably going into that matchup against Michigan. They're going to be a 10-win ball club, a 10-win team this year, in my opinion. And number 19, Kentucky beating Mississippi State. They got Will Levis back. The offense looked completely different against Mississippi State and their secondary. They have one of the best secondaries in the SEC in college football in general. One of the best passing defenses in college football. Will Rogers just couldn't get it going as much as he would have liked to for Mississippi State. Kentucky's definitely a top 25 team this season. We gave them the benefit of the doubt last week. They didn't drop out. I thought they would a little bit, but we gave them the benefit of the doubt because Will Levis wasn't playing. He comes back. They're a different ball club. At number 20, we got Texas. Number 21, we got Cincinnati. At number 22, climbing out from being unranked, we have North Carolina jumping into the top 25. And then at number 23, we got NC State. And number 24, we got Mississippi State, both dropping 8 slots after losing to Syracuse and Kentucky. And then coming into the top 25 is the Green Wave of Tulane. They have been playing really good. They've been the best team by far in the American. Well, one of the best teams by far. One of the best teams in the American. I would say Cincinnati's the better team. It's the best team in the American next to Tulane. But Tulane is well deserving of being in the top 25. James Madison losing James Madison, I believe they lost to Georgia Southern. Killed me on my parlay. I meant to grill James Madison early on in the show, but it's all good. James Madison. I never trust those teams that just hop in. They're unranked and they just hop into the top 25, and they haven't been in the top 25 in a very long time. I don't know how long it's been since Tulane's been in the top 25, but they got a tough matchup with Memphis this week. So everybody watch out for that matchup with Memphis. But I think Tulane is well deserving to be in the top 25 at least for this week. And that's the top 25, the AP top 25. I think if I had to choose some teams that may hop into the top 25, I'm gonna have to go with, who's next in line. Purdue's definitely next in line. LSU is definitely next in line. Kansas could hop back in there, especially when they get Jalen Daniels back. And if they win, they string off a few games, they could jump back into the top 25. UCF, Gus Malzahn talking all kinds of crazy nonsense, saying that this team is just as good as the top 4. You're crazy, but you can probably be in the top 25. Your team's playing well. Arkansas is another team that could be in the top 25. They actually had a good win against BYU at BYU last weekend. So definitely Arkansas is another team that can sneak back into the top 25 of after winning a couple really impressive games. They can. Moving on to our next segment is our Prime Sports World feature games of the week. Now I'm not going to go too much into detail because I don't have Christian isn't here or Matt James, so it's just me. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick my winners for my feature games of the week here. First game that I have on the slot, Syracuse, number 14 Syracuse, going into Death Valley, going into Clemson, and playing and going against number 5 Clemson DJ Uiagalelei, who has been really good this season. He's definitely a top 5 Heisman candidate. He's played like a top 5 Heisman candidate this year. He's had a very, very bounce back year this year. This is a team, Syracuse, led by Sean Tucker, the running back, who's before he was on the Doak Walker Award list on the preseason, but he's one of the more balanced running backs, in my opinion, in the nation. He's a guy that can catch the ball at the backfield. He can run the ball between the tackles. He can bounce it on the outside. He's definitely a game changer. The connection between Arondé Gadsden and Garrett Schrader, man, I'm just gonna say this, man. That's one of the more potent duos in college football right there. Arondé Gadsden is a guy. He got great pedigree too. His dad played in the NFL. He's a guy 6'5", 216, has a great route tree, has great footwork, has great control. Reminds me a little bit of Keenan Allen. Reminds me a little bit of Keenan Allen. Just saying. I mean, he's not as dominant as Keenan Allen, but he reminds me a little bit of Keenan Allen. Rondé Godson is a guy that can get into the league next year, and he can make a difference on the team's roster at 6'5", 216. I mean, he's got great footwork, great body control. He's a guy to watch out for. With that being said, DJ Uiagalelei has been playing lights out. 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 1,600 yards. DJ Uiagalelei has been one of the better dual threat quarterbacks this season so far. I'm trying to look up his rushing stats so far this year. Yeah, he's definitely been. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns. He's definitely been a dual threat quarterback so far this year on the ground and through the air. When I look at their defense, their defense is really good. Yeah, Clemson has got one of those defenses that can, put you out. They can put you out. They'll put you out. Okay, just saying. I can't go by saying this. Will Shipley, you're the running back. I'm talking about running backs. Will Shipley is one of those guys that's shifty. He's not the most explosive guy, but he's relentless. He runs north-south. He's a hard runner. Syracuse run defense is pretty good. Second in the ACC in rushing defense. They give up just 95 yards on the ground. When I look at that defense, like I said, man. When I look at that defense, like I said, Miles Murphy, kind of slow start the season, but we're starting to see him pick it up a little bit. Clemson's defense is going to be able to give Syracuse some problems. They have 37 straight home wins. Clemson has 37 straight home wins, and they could surpass Florida State this week, then break the ACC record for most home wins in the ACC. I think they do get that done. I think they do get that done. I just think that Clemson, all phases of the game, all phases on the team, they're the more complete team. I think this team, definitely offensively can get it done after, they can get after it. They get after it on the, on the defensive end as well. Definitely got to look out for DJ Uiagalelei in this game. I know that they have one of the better rushing defenses, but but in the secondary, Syracuse is a little, I gotta say that they're a little shaky, So when I look at a guy that can have a big game, Antonio Williams comes to mind. Okay, he's a guy that's he's a leading receiver. He's a guy that can have 100+ yards and a touchdown in this game. Defensively, like I said, Miles Murphy, he's a guy that can get after the quarterback. He's had 5 sacks, one of the nation leaders in sacks. He started off slow, but he's been hot, and he's the highly regarded NFL draft prospect. So that's a guy to watch out for. Godly, who's the other kid that I had? Brian Breesy. It's another kid that is definitely a game changer on that defensive line. Bear Carter, another guy. Trenton Simpson, another guy. Jalen Phillips, another guy. They have playmakers all up. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., another kid. They have guys all over Clemson that are game changers defensively. I think Syracuse loses this game. Moving on to the next game, I have UCLA versus Oregon. This is probably going to be my game of the week, in my opinion. Just because of the implications, it's the top 10 matchup. UCLA going into the zoo, into the Outson Zoo, in Oregon. I see this one shaking out here. I think Oregon wins this game at home. I don't think it's gonna be a barn. I don't think it's gonna be a barn burner, but I think it's gonna be close. I think Bo Nix has been playing great football since week 1. He's been great. And during DTR has been playing great football all season. But Bo Nix has looked the best in this system. It looks like he's playing more free. He's playing with all his potential. He's accurate with the football. He's been a good he's been a good dual threat quarterback. I just think Oregon wins this game at home. I'm not gonna give a score, but it's gonna be godly. What is the spread? I mean, 6.5 point spread, the 6.5 point favorites. I'll take the spread on that. I'll take this. No, no. I won't take the spread on 6.5. I think they'll win by a field goal. I think this game will go into OT. But this is gonna be a game. This is gonna be a hell of a fun game to watch. UCLA, both offenses are great. And I just think that UCLA just doesn't. I think UCLA defensively, I don't think they can give. I don't know if they'll give Oregon problems like Georgia did or something like that. I can't really compare them to Georgia, but I can't really put my thumb on it. But both of them really good running backs, really good rushing attacks. Both of them have really steady quarterback play. Oregon's atop the league in yards per game. UCLA second in the league in yards per game. So this is going to be like falling on the rushing defense. And I'm talking about rushing offense, by the way. This is going to be falling on the rushing defense of both teams. So whoever can bend but not break is going to win this football game. Moving on. Number 20 Texas versus number 11 Oklahoma State. Let me say this. Oklahoma State's going to come out pissed. They're in Stillwater. They lost to TCU. They want to get back. They want to make a statement. A lot of people right now are picking Texas. To win this ball game. I don't think so. Hold up, my friend. Quinn Ewers, one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. He's got to go against a team that's averaging almost 3 sacks per game. This team, Oklahoma State, they get after the football. They get after the quarterback. They get a lot of pressure. So Quinn Ewers is gonna, who's gonna have a big, who's going to have a game that anytime you have a lot of quarterback pressure, and you're probably you're gonna get off your spots. You're not gonna have that great of a game passing. You hand it off to your All-American running back in Bijan Robinson. That's what you do. Bijan Robinson is gonna have a good game in this game, but I don't think it's gonna be enough. I think that Oklahoma State still has a lethal passing attack with Spencer Sanders. I don't think Texas has the defense to slow him down. I don't think Texas has the defense to slow Oklahoma State in general down. When I look at guys, when I look at the big play threats, Brayton Johnson averages nearly 20 yards a catch. 20 yards a catch. That's hard. So let me say this: Oklahoma State's top 5 in the nation. I think they're fourth nationally. They're fourth in the nation with 45.3 points per game. Like I said, big matchup between both of these two, going to be in Stillwater. I think Oklahoma State gets it done with their offense. I think they have too much of a high, potent offense. I think Texas is going to have enough defensively to slow them down. Next matchup, I have Mississippi State, number 24 Mississippi State, going up against number 6 Alabama. And I'm going to just be real quick with this. Alabama's pissed. They lost to Tennessee. Mississippi State is cute. Mike Leach, passing offense. Will Rogers. You're going against Alabama. They're going to bring pressure. Will Rogers is going to be running like a chicken with his head cut off. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to run all over that team. Even though I don't care how good you want to think Mississippi is defensively. I'm gonna tell you this right now. Alabama's gonna play pissed. They're at home, and they're gonna make an example out of Mississippi State coming in Tuscaloosa. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. I don't have to say nothing else. Everybody that is probably watching this podcast is gonna probably agree with me. Is that Alabama is going to make an example out of Mississippi State this week. They might beat Mississippi State by 30 points, 30 plus points this week. Will Anderson, he had a quote this week. We know this feeling. We know how to bounce back. Yeah, they're going to bounce back. They're going to bounce back in a big way. I foresee, Bryce Young having a big game, Jahmyr Gibbs having a big game, Will Anderson having a big game. I just, the last game was, I think Alabama. This is kind of the same. This is kind of the same game as last year, where when Alabama lost to Texas A&M, they rebounded with a 49-9 win in Starkville, Mississippi. Okay, and they held Will Rogers to only 300 yards. 300. They held Mississippi State and Will Rogers to 300 total yards last season. And sacked but they sacked him 7 times and had 3 interceptions. So I'm sorry, Mississippi State, you have to be on the short end of this stick. Alabama's about to put a hurting on them. They might do the same thing, 49-9, but this is gonna be in Tuscaloosa. They'll be waving the white flags and stuff. That's what's gonna happen to Mississippi State. I got Alabama winning in a landslide in this matchup, but unfortunately, this had to be a feature game. 2 ranked teams. It was a PSW feature game. It's a feature game because I want to see how Alabama bounces back. If they bounce back with only a 7-point win, a 10-point win, they don't deserve to be in the CFP or the top 4. But if they beat Mississippi State by 30, 40 points after they lost to Tennessee, they deserve to be back. They deserve to be the top 4. I mean, not right out back, but they'll be in the top 4. Moving on to our last feature game of the week, Kansas State at TCU. This is gonna be a hell of a game right here. 2 good quarterbacks, Adrian Martinez, Max Duggan. With Adrian Martinez, being a dual threat quarterback he is, I mean, he's been killing it this year on the ground. I mean, at one point, I think in the last 3 games, Adrian Martinez had like 10 touchdowns or 10 plus touchdowns or something like that in that fashion. He had in the last 3 games since Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Iowa State, he had 3 passing touchdowns and he had 7 rushing touchdowns in between Oklahoma and Texas Tech. So he had 10 touchdowns in the last 3 ball games. I think Kansas State. I think Kansas State is a team. I just gotta put my thumb on this one. Kansas State is a team that can run the hell out of football, but when it comes down to it, can they pass the ball? Can Adrian Martinez sit in the pocket and rip that ball through when those edges aren't given in, and they're taking the edge on Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn? I think Kansas State has they have their work cut out for them playing against Max Duggan and Quinn Johnson. I think this is a team that very resilient. TCU is a team that's very resilient. You can't count them out. When they go down, they roll with the punches. I got them as my upset pick, so I'm just going to go ahead and say I got K-State beating TCU at TCU. I think Adrian Martinez is going to probably break this game open. Big matchup that I will say defensively to offensively. TCU has a hell of an offensive line. They've only allowed 3 sacks. They're going against one of the better defensive ends in Felix Uzoma. Felix and a DK Uzama. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. Um, he's a guy. He's a guy that's tied for the nation lead with 6.5 total. So he's tied for the nation lead in sacks. He's a guy that can really get after the quarterback as well. Max Duggan's more of a pocket passer, so that bodes well for him. But him going against this offensive line, who's really, really solid up front, one of the best offensive lines in college football, that's going to be a matchup to watch. Um, Adrian Martinez, and dude, this is why I say Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn, only running back and quarterback duo with over 500 rushing yards in the nation. Martinez has 9 rushing touchdowns. Nine of them. Jesus, 9 of them. I just think that's going to be hard for TCU. That's going to be hard for TCU to try to stop, in my opinion. But I think they have the formula to do it. But it's going to be hard for them to do it. I think K-State wins in overtime. And that's my thing. And I have a stat right here. Kendra Miller, he has a rushing touchdown in all 6 games. His 7-game streak overall is tied for the second longest in school history, behind LaDainian Tomlinson's 15 in a row from 1999 to 2000. I doubt he gets the 15 in a row. The young man might, but that's a good piece of history to be right there in the name, in the same namesake as LaDainian Tomlinson. And then my upset picks for the week, I got LSU beating Ole Miss this week. I got Memphis knocking off Tulane at Tulane. I got K-State, we just talked about it, beating TCU at TCU. And then I got Minnesota going into Happy Valley and beating Penn State this week. Those are my upset picks for the week. Lock them in. And that Minnesota at Penn State, I think Penn State's going to be real angry. That's more of a long shot one right there, in my opinion. It's more of a long shot one right there, in my opinion, just because of the fact that they're going into Happy Valley. Penn State is the better team. They're identical to what Michigan does. They just do it. They don't do it as good as Michigan, but they know how to run the football. They have that quarterback that's above average that can make plays as well. But I think Minnesota, if this is a chance to kind of beat a team, it's right now after they lost 42-10 to Michigan. They showed some problems offensively. Penn State did, but they're playing at home. They're going to be amped up. They're going to be ready to make an example out of Minnesota. This is a long shot. You can put that on your parlay, and your odds will be boosted, heavily to win some money this week. But I definitely feel real comfortable with Memphis beating Tulane at Tulane. I feel comfortable with Kansas State beating TCU at TCU, and I definitely feel comfortable with LSU winning at home against Ole Miss. I think Jackson Dart's going to run into some problems. I think Chip Kelly's going to have a good defensive game plan, in an offensive game plan for the quarterback, the transfer from Arizona State. Name's mistaken me. It's Jalen. But he's going to have a good game plan for LSU. Here going up against Ole Miss. I think with Jackson Dart, he's a guy that if you can knock him off his spots a little bit, I think he has some problems. Trying to deliver that football. I think LSU, brings a little bit of that. It's Jalen Daniels, if I'm not mistaken. That's his name. I think he'll have a good game plan for him going into this game against Ole Miss at home. I think they'll be able to run the football. They'll be able to kind of have a well-balanced attack. Daniels is really good with the RPOs in the zone replays. So that's a guy that we got to watch out for coming up. He's got 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's been playing real solid this year at the quarterback position for Brian Kelly this week. So I do feel real comfortable with LSU beating number 7 Ole Miss at home. Moving on to our Heisman candidate, our Heisman watch. Still number 1, CJ Stroud, but moving into that number 2 slot, I got Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker has played tremendously well. He has been one of the best college football players this season. I can't get enough of Hendon Hooker. He's played his self, and he's not just a deep ball thrower. This guy can make the intermediate throws. I mean, he's a transfer from Virginia Tech. We all thought he was done with when he transferred from Virginia Tech to Tennessee. He's elevated his game to a whole new level ever since last season. He's elevated his game to a whole new level this season with Tennessee. He can make the intermediate throws, the short throws, the deep throws. He throws the prettiest deep ball in college football. He can make pressure throws. We saw when he had the last minute drive to get them in the field goal range. He made two excellent throws in pressure situations against Alabama. Hendon Hooker is my number 2 guy in the Heisman watch list, and I just think that Tennessee's going to go. I think Tennessee's going to go unbeaten the rest of the year, in my opinion. So, watch out for Hendon Hooker. I think Hendon Hooker has a real big shot at winning this Heisman award list. I mean, C.J. Stroud. We can say whatever we want about C.J. Stroud has a lot of help. He has a lot of help at wide receiver. He's got Smith and Jugboy. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got Mbuke as well. I mean, he's got 3 guys. He's got Trey Henderson. Hey, he's got guys all over the field, man, that he can hand the ball off to and throw the ball to. When I look at Tennessee, I look at Jalen Hyatt is one of the best wide receivers in the nation. This guy is gonna be 10 receiving touchdowns so far this season. He's gonna end the season with like 17 to 20. He's gonna be a first round pick next year. Okay, so Tennessee has their weapons too, but I just love Hendon Hooker being in the top 3 in the Heisman Trophy list. And then at number 3, I got Caleb Williams. He's gonna stay at this slot. As long as they lost. If they would have beat Utah, he probably would have jumped. I don't think he would have jumped Hendon Hooker, in my opinion, but he stays right here this slot. I think out of everybody here that I mentioned, I think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback. Arm talent, pocket presence, athleticism, size, moxie. I just think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback prospect, no matter what class he's in. He's a true sophomore. No matter what class he's in, I think he's better than C.J. Stroud. I think he's better than Hendon Hooker. I think he's better than Bryce Young. I think he's better than DJ Uiagalelei. I think he's better than Sam Hartman. I think he's the best. He's better than Will Levis. He's the best quarterback prospect, in my opinion. Next year, he's going to be the unanimous number 1 pick, or the unanimous number 1 quarterback drafted in next year's draft class. That's how good Caleb Williams is. He is a stud, and he's my number 3 on my Heisman watch list. And then at number 4, I got Bryce Young. He's like probably number 2 or 3 quarterback, best quarterback, probably in this next year's draft. But he's also he's had an up and down year. But Bryce Young is a guy that in the face of adversity, he has shown some great. He has shown some moxie as well, especially against Texas when the chips were down. He made a couple big plays down the stretch. Even against Tennessee, he made a few good plays. He made some good plays in that second half as well. That was man, yeah. And like I said, Bryce Young's, definitely. There's no Heisman watch list without Bryce Young. I'll just kind of go over what his numbers were last week. This is a 52-49 win. Bryce Young had 455 yards and 2 tutties. 455 yards and 2 tutties. He was 35 of 52. No interceptions. Yeah, he's getting invited to New York no matter what. DJ Uiagalelei, I mentioned it earlier. He's a guy that had a bounce back year. Sophomore, true freshman year, he sat behind Trevor Lawrence. He had a great game against Notre Dame. First year starting as a sophomore. Kind of had some bugs. And then now in his 3rd year, being in that position, I think DJ Uiagalelei. Let me pull up his stats real quick here, because DJ is definitely a guy that I want to look at real quick here, because as a junior, his 3rd year here, he's gotten better. Because as a sophomore, first year as a full-time starter, you can see he has some struggles kind of adapting to being a full-time starter, for Clemson. But this year, he has just grown into the role. He's the better leader. He got better pocket presence. He's had shown the ability to make all the throws, back shoulder throws. Even though sometimes I think he needs to put a little bit more air on his back shoulder throws. Sometimes he could throw every throw kind of like straight line, kind of a dart. Sometimes you gotta have some finesse. DJ's shown that this year, but the dual threat ability at 6'5", 235 pounds. I mean, it's amazing. 17 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He's cut down on his turnovers. He's been one of the more accurate quarterbacks this year, and he's a guy that they put the ball in hands in clutch situations. He makes some plays. TJ Uiagalelei is in my top 5 on my Heisman list, and then my dark horse, Blake Corum. He's just been amazing this year. And then my outside looking in, I got DTR from UCLA, Adrian Martinez, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy I want to talk about. 3 touchdowns last week against Tennessee. I already kind of mentioned him earlier. He sneaks into the outside looking in, knocking out Sam Hartman. Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that he's a kid. He's a jack of all trades. Kick return, punt return. He catches the ball at the backfield. He can run the ball between the tackles, outside the tackles. He's a kid, the transfer. He's a transfer from Georgia Tech. He's a kid that can get it done in all facets of the game. He's one of those guys that, when he goes to the next level, they could be able to do a lot of things with him in an offense. But Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely a player to watch out for on the Heisman list. And and if you guys have any Heisman candidates that I might have missed, go ahead and drop them down there in the comment section, and we can talk about them in the next show if you'd like. But anyways, that's been a wrap for week 8. Everybody, I hope you guys have go put those bets in. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast at Prime Sports World. Go ahead and like our Prime Sports World Facebook page. Go ahead and like our NBA Supreme Facebook page, our Facebook group, and NFL Supreme Facebook group. And tomorrow, David Huffman, Mr. On Point, will be back with T.J. Hopkins on the crossover. You guys don't want to miss that. Going over the first week of the NBA's games. It's been a hell of a week. We have all 4 major sports going on in America right now. We got hockey, we got baseball, playoffs, October baseball. We have NBA, and we have the NFL going on. And Thursday was like, damn, what do I watch? Do I watch the Yankees and the Astros? Do I watch Thursday Night Football? Do I watch basketball? Do I watch hockey? I don't know what to watch. I'm going crazy right now. So it's one of those, great, times right now, times of the year for sports. So you don't want to miss that content that David and TJ bring tomorrow with the crossover. They'll be here in the afternoon. Everybody, I hope you guys drink responsibly, enjoy those games. And at Prime Sports World, we bring the heat and we bring the most exclusive content on Facebook, going live 5 to 6 times a week. And we go live 7 times a week if we could. And sometimes we do go live 7 days a week. And in case I miss you, and if I didn't miss you, good afternoon, evening, and good night.